What's going on YouTube? Welcome to episode 62 of the U.S.S. Enterprise D tutorial. I'm Zerolene, and I just want to thank you very much for tuning in today's episode. If you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And today we have about a 28-minute video. We're going to be continuing our work on the shuttle bays and also doing a little bit of work on the shuttle bay control rooms for the secondary and tertiary. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right into this thing because we're going to be taking up a little bit of time. So you see how these three layers of blocks right here, we can't delete any of those. They have to stay there. So we're going to be doing a couple of things here to try to blend that in so you don't notice that in the way. I think one thing we're ultimately probably going to do here is we're going to move the wall forward by 2, and then we're going to add a layer. That could work out pretty good. Now you can see I brought it back right there. We are going to come back to that because what we're going to do to deal with this right side here, we're going to put a walkway to cover that up. What we're also going to do is we're going to be working on an elevator, well, turbo lift, to get us from the main deck to our shuttle bay control rooms. Now originally I wanted our main turbo lift going from the neck down to lower hull to be able to go up into the shuttle bay control room, but we just don't have any more room the angle that it's at. And if I would have moved the turbo lift any more forward, then we would have had to have gone up a deck because literally it's like right up against the deflector dish. So we're kind of pressed for space on that. So that's kind of where I'm at on it. It's not necessarily a place that I want to be on this, but at the end of the day, it's going to eventually happen to you. You're going to be pretty much have to deal with the room that you have available to work with and just figuring out a way to make it work. That's why I say a lot of the times these builds, it's almost like a giant jigsaw puzzle because you're trying to figure out a way to make the interior work based on the room that you have to work with in some scenarios. Really on the Enterprise D, there's only been like 1 or 2 times where this is going to be happening to us. The main turbo lift and having a brain fart, captain's ready room, and officer's conference room. Other than that, we're pretty much good. Which has actually been pretty nice because I built this thing out to a scale where we really didn't have to worry about room too much. But really, so I'm sure somebody will probably ask, hey, why didn't you just make some of these areas bigger? Maybe make the neck bigger, or make the bridge bigger. And if I would have done that, I would have had to have made considerable changes to our the proportioning of the ship. Now, one thing I do want to point out, because I actually made a slight error here, you can see that my turbo lift is only 2 wide, and we are eventually going to come back to make that 3 wide, just like our regular template should be for our turbo lifts. So if you want to do that, feel free to do that, and you're going to have to go to the left looking, well, actually, let me rephrase that. You're going to have to be going back towards the shuttle bay. So add 1 more row here to make it 3 wide and then build it out, because we can't go towards the center anymore because we're right up on the second level of the corridors. As you can see, I'm going to actually be moving this over just a little bit because I don't want to have it right up on the corridor unless we absolutely have to. It's good to have just a little bit of space, and it's really not going to impede on our shuttle bay control room because we have the space to do it. We just really need to make sure that there's enough room to put a walkway to walk in between the corridor, or excuse me, not the corridor, but the turbo lift, and then also to get into the shuttle bay control room. can see I'm just closing that up. And we're going to be moving it over. We're going to be building it dead center, and now we're going 3 wide just like we should be. There we go. Now see, this is something else I didn't necessarily want to do that where I have that corridor line. I usually try to build out my rooms in between those. It looks cleaner. But in this case, we kind of really don't have much of a choice, so that we have enough room to do it. And really at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. I don't think anyone is really going to notice it. If I hadn't said anything, you probably might not have even noticed it. But I like to point out these things because this is the kind of things that I think about when I'm working on my ships. And it's good to have that type of thought process as well, you know, having your ships where things match up and you're consistent throughout the build. But every once in a while, when you have no choice and you feel like you have to make an exception, you can definitely do it. And it's looking a little bit tight just between the two rooms here, going left to right. But I think we're going to end up moving the wall for the shuttle bay control room out by one more. So we'll have, it doesn't look like it now. It looks tight, but by the time we're done with it, it'll look pretty good. See, this is one of the things you can see even before I'm building out my shuttle bay control rooms. I'm working out the floor plan first. This is very important to do this, so this way the rest of the room can be dictated. The last thing you want to do is build out your room first and then go back and build out your corridors, because then you're going to have way more problems. It's going to fit much better when you're just going off of the blueprint for your floor outline, your hallways, as opposed to doing it the other way. And believe me, I've done it that way too. And I've just found that it's a lot easier doing it this way. If you want an example of that, go on my YouTube channel and look at my first videos that I put out. My very first tours I had of my 2009 Enterprise. That's a perfect example of it. That's the ship where I built the corridors second. Originally I had straightaway corridors on that thing. I had janky circular corridors I tried to wing. It just didn't work out. And you know, this is why I bring up all these steps on to build these ships and the process in which that we build them, because I've been there and I've done it. And I'm trying to save you guys from making some of the mistakes that I've made too. And you can even see here that I have room here that looks like I can put a turbo lift up in here. And believe it or not, we can't. We just don't have enough room. But I had left this space open here up top with the hopes of being able to do that. But I mean, it just is what it is. I've actually gone back, I think, 3 or 4 times, and I've tried to make it work. And the size that we would have had to have made the neck, the backbone of the neck anyway, I just didn't want to do that, because then I would have changed the look of the outside of the ship, and I wasn't comfortable with doing that because I didn't want to mess with the proportions of it. Because that's one of the things I do when I build these ships. I start with the saucer and I build everything off the proportion of the saucer. So when you start, my point is that when you start making other things bigger without proportioning it to the other sections, that's where you're going to start running into trouble. Because you start making those little tweaks, like now, for example, like we did with our engines. You know, you can tweak the size of the engines like we were doing before because we're proportioning it with the rest of the ship. But in this case, where we're trying to make it bigger to suit our need to have a turbo lift going up a little bit higher, that's where you're going to run into problems, and try to avoid that if possible. Now, I was thinking about having dual turbo lifts going up to decks 1 and 2 on the main deck here, but I just decided, I'm like, you know what, like maybe we might even come back and do that at some point, but as of now, in this point in the tutorial, we're just going to do the 1. But we might end up coming back to do that, just to make it look a little bit nicer. That could end up being a thing, but I'm not really too worried about space at this point. We've got got enough room to make it work. But that's something that I have been thinking about. Maybe I might come back and add a second turbo lift to get up to the shuttle bay control rooms. Alright, so that looks pretty good. We're going to make a cut here for our window. So now we got to make some adjustments because now we actually have our deck in place where that's going to be, so we got to mess with that just a little bit. We're going to have to fill in the previous cut that we had below. Before I get too far out, I'm going to do the same thing on this side now. Because even though the shape of the room is a little bit different, it's the same principle for the changes that we're making. So want to stick by that rule. If you do one thing on one side, do it on the other, even if in this rare case, if the room is slightly different. We're still doing the same process over here because we did the same thing on the other side. We just have less room to work with on this side because this shuttle bay is smaller. That is going to be one cool thing about this build, is that we're not going to be pressed for room here. We're going to have pretty much all the room that we need to do whatever we want to do, which I love. I've never really been in this scenario before where I can build whatever I want. And I think I talked about this on one other episode, where one of the things I'm going to be doing when I build out my the holodecks is that I'm actually going to build out a scene in one of those holodecks, and I'm really leaning towards the Dixon Hill episodes. I think that would be really cool, and I have the space to do it. So don't be surprised if there's going to be an episode in this tutorial where we're building out like a small city area from the 1930s. I think that would actually be really cool, and it would be totally fitting for this build, considering that there were so many episodes of the Dixon Hill episodes featured in The Next Generation, so much so that it was even in the movie Star Trek First Contact. I love that. So that's going to be something that we're going to be doing, and that's one of the ways I'm going to be trying to think outside the box here on different things that I can add to this ship, which brings me to my next point. If there's any rooms that you want to see me add, be sure to drop a comment below. Let me know what you want to see, because that's going to be a thing too. Once I move on to the next build, I'm not going to be working on this thing anymore, and just going to be off to the next one, because I've been saying this before, that they're not making any new episodes of Star Trek featuring a Galaxy class ship, so we're not likely to get any more material to go off of. I think I've pretty much mined out most of the stuff that I want to make, but you never know. There might be one or two things here and there that other people want to see me do. I did have a suggestion for somebody that I should build a barber shop. I think I might actually end up doing that. I think it would be cool, and it would just be something, a little bit of extra flavor on this ship that I haven't done on any of my other ones too, because that's one of the things too that gets in like the monotonous part of doing these tutorials, is that how do you stop yourself from repeating yourself over and over again and doing something different. We do have the advantage of, you know, all these different class ships. They are different on the interior, but they have a lot of the same rooms. Maybe some of them have different layouts to them, but after a while it's going to get to a point where it's like, okay, what can we do to keep pushing the envelope and adding different things? And that's going to be something that you'll be seeing me do going forward, that, you know, I'm going to be trying to do things that you only see on this build, which is pretty cool, you know. I like that, because I'm not even gonna lie, even for me, like, it can get boring building on here a little bit. That's why I'll take breaks. Anytime I get bored when I'm building on Minecraft, I step away from it, because usually when my heart's not in it, I'm not building as well as I could be. So then I just try to take a break from it, step away for a minute until I've kind of recharged, and then I come back again with a fresh set of eyes and I get into it again until I get bored again. I take another break. And you can see what I'm doing here. I'm actually adding a lip, so this way we can step out one forward if we're inside the shuttle bay control room. And it adds a little bit more texture and depth to the room itself. It'll look a little bit nicer, I think, too. but I could be wrong. I think we're going to be stretching this whole thing out a little bit. You can see I actually just brought the wall over so it's flush, but I think might actually extend that out by one more because I'm trying to cover up those blocks underneath to the right corner, the lower right corner there that we can't delete because that's the actual blocks in the neck. Now see, that's pretty good, but we at least need to come out one more. That's what it's telling me right there. So you can see what I'm doing. I actually did a block going across the bottom, see how that looks. That doesn't look too bad. But maybe if I brought it out by one more, that would solve that problem. Because one thing that we have right now going for us, we have the advantage of the room being big enough to where we can add a layer or two to it, and it's not going to mess with the build at all. I need to actually switch that out for the light gray. There we go. Now we're rocking. So we'll be covering that up there on this side when we add in the walkway here on the side, because in this shuttle bay, I forget if this is number 2 or number 3, but in the larger one on the neck, there's like a walkway to the left, like if you're looking inside of the ship, not outward. You see, we're going to delete this wall here because my main reason for doing that is because I'm going to add a wall now on the side of the turbo lift so we can cover up those sea lanterns. Yeah, and this is where I made the decision, like I'm just going to bring it out by one more. Because that'll fix that problem. Now, you don't want to go out too much more than that because we still want the room to be kind of spacious to where it feels like you can fit 1 or 2 shuttles in here. And we've got the headroom too, just like it should be. And I'm probably going to actually have to switch that block out for the white concrete, because that's going to show on the outside, unless it looks good. It's definitely very important to get these walkways established first, because this is going to help the rooms come together a little bit too. This is kind of how I come up with the process of that. A lot of the times, you won't see me just build out the shape of the room. I'll actually go off kind of the floor plan a little bit first to kind of help guide me a little bit when I'm not sure what exactly I want to do. See, to fix that problem, we're just going to add one more layer underneath. And now, on this side, we're going one in, and then we're just going to blend that in. I want to make sure to go back on this side, repeat the same process. And then we're going to add a lip up top that's the same height or the same placement as the bottom lip here. We have a gap in the middle, so we have a room for our window. And this was something else I was talking about. This very top row here, we're going to be filling this in so we can cover up our blue stripes. This way when you come into the room, it's nice and clean. You don't have any lingering blocks sitting anywhere. That's really the main purpose of why we're doing that. See, that looks so much better than it did before. We're not even done with it yet. We still have a little bit of work to do before the room gets exactly where it needs to be. I'm telling you, this is what's going to separate your builds from the other builds. I see this all the time where I'm going on YouTube and watching other people's videos and their builds that they've done. And it's not even necessarily starships, it's any build in general. They'll spend all this time working on the exterior of the build. When you come inside the ship, or the build itself, whether it's whatever it is, the exterior looks amazing. Then you walk inside and it's a plain hallway, or it's a plain square room. There's no types of really thought out detailing in. You know, take your time and, you know, try to think outside the box and how you can kind of bring that room to life a little bit. We're just getting our windows in so we can have that set. Still think I'm gonna have to fill in this gap right here. Just bring that row all the way down. This way, the only thing we have to worry about, these two blocks right there, they're sticking out, and then we'll be able to fix that with the walkway. And now we're gonna grab some quartz slabs, and we're gonna clean up our roof here just a little bit. I was kind of thinking that maybe I can use half slabs and go up at an angle. And just be careful when you're doing this. Make sure you're not deleting any of the exterior of your hull. Just take your time and go slow. Slow and steady wins the race. So you see I'm going up one half slab. So now we can get kind of an idea of the angle that we need to go at so we can achieve that. We're going to delete this row down here on this side. Now we're going to be going up by one half slab and replacing that. So now we have half slab transition. Maybe you just get rid of the white concrete and the light gray blocks, and then we'll be in good shape and swap those out for the half slabs. So now our roof looks nice and clean. Again, we want to make sure we do one thing on one side, do it on the other, even though the shape is just a little bit different. The only difference here in the roof is that there's this one cut line. And now we're going to get rid of these light gray blocks. So everything matches. That looks pretty good. You see this row here, I'm using the full quartz block. And the reason I'm doing that on this row is because it's only going to stick out by one half slab. So I'm kind of just cheating. You can do that on the rows with the white concrete. Yeah, see, that looks fantastic. How are we doing on time? We've still got about 4 minutes left in today's episode, but we're getting some stuff done today. We're really shaping these rooms up, and we've got our walkways established for our primary shuttle bays. But this isn't going to be something that we're just going to be completing in one episode, unfortunately, just because of the scale of it, and there's going to be a ton of detail that we have to do. So we might as well take our time and do it right. Little line right there, I'm not a fan of that, and I'm not a fan of how it switches between the half slabs to the full blocks there in the lip. But that's just something for me it's bugging me, so I might come back and fix that. You can see here I'm trying to kind of mess with it a little bit and see what I can do where I like it just a little bit more. Although I'm not really crazy about that either. You see I'm just filling it in, but yeah, that kind of Not sure how I feel about that. Just thickening it up, it doesn't really look all that great. Don't know if we're gonna have enough time to fix that all by today's episode, but that is something that we are going to fix because I'm not happy with that at all. This is going to be one of those cases that we're presented with a problem. How do we fix it? So that's going to be something to think about, and we're going to be coming back to that, I think, because we're kind of creeping down now to the last couple of minutes of today's episode. Okay, so we might at least get into it a little bit. So you can see here, I'm going back to originally what we have. I'm getting rid of the full blocks. I'm just replacing those with half slabs, which is going to look way better than what we had. Really, the only thing we're gonna have to clean up now is the walls inside right here. We'll have to fill that in a little bit. Actually surprised we had enough time to get to that today. I really thought that what we're doing right now, we're going to be getting in the next episode. Now see, this is another thing too we got to watch out for. You see now I'm building on the outside of my ship and we're changing the color. We don't want to do that. So just to make it clean, what I did was I deleted the full blocks and just replaced it with half slabs to see what exactly I could fill in. So there's only a couple of blocks right there. Maybe we can just get away with a couple of them being full white quartz blocks. It won't look as good if it were just a straight color, but we're kind of pressed for space right there a little bit. I think before we get too far ahead, I'm just going to quickly repeat the same process on this side before we run out of time. Okay. And now just where we can, we're going to put in the white concrete blocks. We got two lingerers right there we got to fix up, but that's going to be it for today. We are out of time. And yeah, pretty happy with the progress that we've made thus far. And we'll keep this thing going until we're done with it. But I think that is going to wrap us up today. I just want to thank you all again for tuning in today's episode. And of course, if you have any questions regarding today's episode or any builds you want to see, or just dropping by to say, hey, be sure to drop a comment below. I'm usually pretty responsive in the comment section. I'll try to help you out if I can. And of course, don't forget to always check in on my new Minecraft episodes dropping Tuesdays through Thursdays. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for me. I just want to thank you all again for tuning in today's episode. I hope everybody has a happy and safe week, and I'll catch you in the next episode. And of course, what did you make today in Minecraft? Let me know in the comment section.